This is Women's Tech Radio,
a show on the Jupiter Broadcasting Network interviewing interesting women in technology, exploring their roles and how they're successful in technology careers. I'm Paige.
And I'm Angela.
So Angela, today we're going to talk to Fiaura the Tank Girl. She is a YouTube streamer and a semi-pro gamer, and we get into a whole bunch of discussions about games and YouTube and all sorts of fun stuff.
And before we get into the interview, I just want to mention you can support Women's Tech Radio by going to patreon.com/today.
And we get started our first question by asking Fiaura what she's up to in the world of technology today.
So I am I was a professional video game player. I'm now a semi-pro player, and I am a video game, I guess media outlet is a good term, community contributor for some places. I have a couple of select video games that I do videos for in order to teach people about the game and offer advertisement. I also do reviews of various video games, and I've recently become a League's broadcaster for Armored Warfare.
I am a video game enthusiast myself. So what genre of video games are you really into, or do you have a specific game, or what's your deal?
So to start with, I originally started with, when I was like 17, I started doing Counter-Strike and Call of Duty, and I got out of those because the community was very
abrasive.
Abrasive is a good delicate term for it.
Doesn't feel so delicate to me, but okay.
No, compared to what the community actually is, it's very delicate.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I moved into World of Warcraft for a while, and again, the PvP community was very abrasive and not very constructive towards actually enjoying myself. People would find ways to say things to you that even when you had clearly soundly defeated them, that it felt like you had cheated or you had done something wrong by just simply beating them. So I eventually moved into World of Tanks, and again, the community's not very good, but I come to expect this from online gaming, is that in an online game, the disinhibition effect goes to an extreme point where people pretty much think there's no consequences.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I do I do community contributions, which is where you make videos of basically replays or reviews of vehicles for World of Tanks and Armored Warfare, the two mainstays of what go onto my YouTube channel. I participated in the first season of the World of Tanks Gold League, and then I've participated in 4 silver seasons and 1 bronze season since then. So I've kind of moved down from the I'm getting paid to do this to I'm kind of getting paid to do this to I'm doing this because it's fun, more so than, getting paid for it. Because at the pay for it level, you have to put in a lot of hours. I think I was doing the Gold League season I participated in, we did 18 hours a week of team practice, plus a mandatory additional 8 hours of on your own play that you had to do per week. And you were only actually in a match for an hour a week. So you did 26 to 30 hours a week of practice for a 1 hour game session, and you didn't actually make any money unless your team made it to the playoffs.
Wow, that is a big time investment.
Yeah. I was going to tag on the end. I was like, so, and I'm guessing you're not really getting paid for that in a way that you can support yourself.
No.
Right?
Most World of Tanks players, the people who make money from smaller esports games like World of Tanks and Armored Warfare, you actually make your money from YouTube and from Twitch and from Patreon than you do from the game itself. Like this year, Eclipse won the North American Regional. The team gets to distribute $75,000 between 10 people. Simp got second place. They get to distribute $45,000 between 10 people. So at best, everyone walks home with $4,500 or $7,500, and it worked for 3 months to get that. Now, when they go to Poland in the summer, if they get to the semifinals, they can each walk home with potentially another $7,000. But that's still not enough to really hold your head above water.
Well, and you're paying to travel to Poland, right?
And you have to win.
That is the nice thing about the way Wargaming has things set up, is you're not paying if you're going to one of the in-person tournaments like the regional or the World Championship. You're all expenses paid.
Oh, that's cool.
Team of 10 is all expenses paid. They'll even try to arrange it so that the 10 of you on the actual flight we'll all get onto the same plane in the same cabin area if possible.
That is really cool.
That's nice. Yeah.
That's really cool of them, but then your actual take home is just not enough to support yourself. So I moved on to doing YouTube videos. At first, I thought, maybe I'll do some good and make it where people don't, quote, suck as much. Because I have seen, I still see it today. I see teams where the random public match system matches up two teams and the score at the end of the day is 15-0.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty imbalanced match.
I've come to accept that that's just something you have to live with. Is there's going to be times where you're just not going to do well and none of your team is. But instead, it's moved more towards entertainment plus information. I want to show gameplay that's entertaining and compelling to watch, and at the same time, at the end of it, maybe have a little short 2 minutes where I explain how that gameplay was possible, and then go on from there. That has slowly developed into, I actually paid my rent last month with YouTube.
Yay!
Awesome.
First time ever, between the Patreon, the stream tip, and the ad revenue, I actually paid my rent.
You don't have you didn't provide your Patreon link. Would you like me to add that to the show notes?
No, it's linked
Okay.
to all, and it's in the description of all my videos, and so an annotation provided at the end of the videos. So if people are actually watching,
Sure.
they can go straight to it.
Great.
So, I mean, you were a professional gamer. I mean, so many kids dream of that. And I think, and growing up for me, at least, which was a while ago, like I would have wanted to do something like that. It sounds cool, but I knew very few other girls who were even at all into games, and which I think is changing. Actually, I do meet more women, more girls who are gamers, even if they're just casual gamers. But like you yourself, before the show, we were talking a little bit, and you mentioned that you were the only female identified person in World of Tanks Gold, or where was that? Tell me that
For the
story.
North American region, I was the only female identified World of Tanks player in any of the three leagues for the first year, the second year, the fourth year, and up until the fall season of last year. In any of the three leagues, I was the only female identified gamer who was actually in the leagues, according to Dance, who runs the leagues and runs the demographics for the leagues.
So what do you think it is about, especially competitive gaming? Like, I definitely meet more women or girls who have done things like, oh, I played WoW casually or something, but like I play League a bunch, and I know like one other girl who plays League, and I have a lot of League friends.
What was your question?
So like why do we not participate in specifically competitive gaming?
I think one of the things is, as soon as you reveal you're a girl, people find it goes from the cries of hacks and bag and other stuff to imposter. You have to prove your gender. They find any little thing to attack you on, and then on top of that, there is the blatant rape jokes that get thrown around.
Ugh.
It's
Mhm.
just,
Yeah.
and then when the in-person stuff, like when you're actually there, people act completely different than when they do on their live stream, or when somebody comes into. I had somebody actually come into my live stream and declare, "Ooh, it's a tranny. You should kill yourself on live stream for us."
Wow.
And I was just like, "You're kidding, right?" So I went through the YouTube report system. Their channel got flat out taken down, but before their channel got taken down, they had a bunch of their subscribers come in and hit the dislike button on my live stream.
Oh,
So my live stream suddenly had 300 dislikes.
that's not easily undoable. YouTube isn't the most cooperative that I've found.
It was good they took down the channel where this person had blatantly attacked me, but there was no reversal of the damage that had been
Right.
done. Just nothing I
Right.
could do about it. And then
Yep.
every once in a while, I have somebody come into the live stream chat now, and there's a bunch of people who just jump all over them, like no questions asked. That's just how they are. They refuse to let them do that, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, I see a potential issue where my moderators or the people in chat are coming back onto the people who are creating problems in a way that's not I can't endorse or say is okay.
Right.
It's a super delicate balance to try to find, like, because you don't want to become them. And at some point you do, like, trying to enforce that sort of stuff. Like, it's really hard as a community manager. Like,
It's frustrating. I actually had to remove someone's moderator privileges last week because they were not. Technically, they were doing their job, but then they were doing their job to a point where it wasn't okay.
Yep, we have that. We have an IRC channel, and we run into problems all the time.
It's so, I mean, the internet is so empowering in so many ways. But that, you know, like you were talking about earlier, you kind of have that moment where you're totally anonymous and there's no consequence.
I did a review of a game earlier this week called Onion Force, and it's absolutely terrible.
Onion Force?
Yeah.
Huh.
Sounds interesting.
It's a mobile port. It's very clear it's a mobile port. They want $12 for it on Steam, and the controls barely work.
Jeez.
The game is just absolutely terrible in its current state. I only played it for like 20 minutes before I just said I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to give them the brutally honest review of this and go on about my business. And someone came by and attacked me for only playing a game that only has an hour of content for 20 minutes. It has 5 levels, each with varying difficulties, but that's it. It only has 5 levels, and each level lasts 3 minutes. All total, the game has about an hour of game time, and they attacked me for only playing 20 minutes. So I played a third of the game, but apparently that's not enough to do a review.
You know, people are always going to find something. It's the worst part about people. Like it's so impossible to do everything right. Like you can't. So there's always a chink in your armor.
That and you really have to decide: do I respond or do I let it go? And engaging in people that this is what they set out to do. It just kind of it just blows up from there.
I have actually found the best response I can give to people like that is YouTube has this feature called hide channel from user, and it basically all of their comments, and they're just gone off your. They still count on your channel in terms of the number of comments for the search bar for YouTube. But
interesting.
They're gone. They can't leave any new comments. They can't hit the like or dislike button. They can still watch your video, and no one else can see them.
That's fantastic.
It's basically a block of that individual, and I can actually look right now. How many people have I actually had to use that on?
It's an interesting statistic.
187.
Ooh.
Wow.
I mean, honestly, that's a great feature. Like, I had this discussion with some friends last week because Facebook did that great. Yeah, this is back in time, of course. Did that interesting thing where they updated the emojis on the like button.
Yes.
And everybody is like, why didn't we get a dislike button? Da da da. And I'm like, why would you want that?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's that when your friend posts a status where they're like, I broke my toe. Like, you don't want to like it, of course, but take a second and comment. It's not a big deal. Like,
right.
Don't be lazy. But like, I'm going to post something like, I just got a new job, and like jerks in my life are going to be like, dislike.
Right.
I don't want to propagate that. Like,
When you have a like-dislike system, people abuse it. I actually don't go on the World of Tanks forums because of the abuse of the like-dislike system.
Yeah. Vote up and down is dangerous.
Yep. And karma and, everything. So I am curious, how do you get your name out there? What kind of social medias do you use to get your channel more attention?
I have a Twitter account that I use. I only have 105 people who follow it out of the 2,500 people who watch my stuff.
Okay. Yeah, well, Twitter and YouTube are very different. It is different people.
I use the games for the forums for the games that I review a lot. When I do a review, I do what's called a brutally honest review. I'm going to give you my review as absolutely hard honest as I possibly can about the content that you have given me.
So you haven't been bought?
Pretty much.
That's great.
I was actually offered by 2 small indie developers to do a paid review, and I told them no. I will still review your game, but you will not hand me money for it.
Right. Yeah, because you don't want that limitation put on your review. You'd feel bad giving potentially negative feedback. This way, you're free to give a legitimate review.
And what some people don't know is that you're obligated now as an online person to report that sort of thing to your audience when you're reviewing. Even if you just received the product for free, you have to report it.
You have to report it. And so the 2 games in question were Prospect and the Town of Light. So I reviewed Prospect, and I lambasted it. The developer does not like me anymore.
Well, of course not.
Well,
right?
He didn't technically produce a game. He produced a mod for Half-Life 2 that you have to pay for.
Oh.
Was my first hang up with it. My second hang up with it was 8 out of the 9 features he promised in the game on the Steam store are not delivered.
Oh, that's no good.
The game started getting such negative reviews and such a high refund rate, he disabled reviews on the game.
Yeah.
The other one, The Town of Light, has actually turned into a Let's Play on my YouTube channel because it's actually that good.
Oh,
So
good.
I went, you know what? I was looking for a new Let's Play to tie me over until certain titles came out. I found one and was pleasantly surprised.
I mean, that's what should be good about a review system,
Yeah.
right? Like, is you are going to weed out the bad apples.
Yeah, I was just going to say, though, like the dislike button would probably work in that situation for that game. That wasn't, but yeah. So are you not a Facebooker then?
I do have a Facebook. I actually decided a long time ago. I started to use a separate Facebook for the YouTube channel and my own Facebook, and said, you know what, screw that. No, let's just. Worst case scenario, I get death threats and I get people who are dicks. So I put a lot of time into my actual YouTube profile to make sure what people could and could not see.
Yeah.
And then my actual YouTube profile is directly linked to a YouTube group called Fiaura, Fiaura. It's Fiaura the Tank Girl, and it's just a YouTube group. There's 328 people in there, and I make sure all of my stuff goes on my main Facebook page and into this group every day after when I get up in the morning. Because what's kind of happened, which is kind of interesting to me, is a lot of my followers are actually European.
Yeah.
I would even say are European at this point. At least the vast majority of ones I see in the comment section and in the chat during live streams. So my videos get released at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, because that's 7, 8, and 9 o'clock GMT.
Right.
So what ends up happening is I release the videos then, and then the North American people check for it on Twitter and Facebook when I wake up in the morning, because that's 6, 7 a.m. our time is when I post it to Facebook and Twitter, and that's when they get their what they're looking for as a reminder that, hey, this went out at like 1 a.m. I hope you guys didn't miss it.
Right. So you're catching everybody when they should be working. Yeah, it's interesting because, we have a worldwide audience, and typically, regardless of what it is that I'm looking at least 40% are over the, what do they call it? Over the pond. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Over the pond. So I find it interesting. And yeah, what is it about that? It's really, I don't know. It's really interesting to have such an international presence.
We should get some of our international guests back on and talk
Yes.
about the culture difference between international stuff. Do you have any idea, Fiaura, like why is it maybe the genre of game that you're doing, or like why the EU section of things is more prevalent for you?
Well, the genre of game has something to do with it because we in the U.S. we don't have this big what would be considered quote tank culture where there's people who like go out and like to see tanks and stuff, and then you go over to Europe, and for instance, the Bovington Tank Museum in England has an event called Tank Fest in June, and they have 3 million people show up to that.
Wow.
The Ukrainian and Russian government have this co-event in Kursk at the Kursk Tank Museum, and close to 1 million people show up to that. There is a tank culture there, and because of that, because I do game my primary 2 games started off being World of Tanks and Armored Warfare. There's a lot of people who over in Europe are kind of tank culture enthusiasts. It's also because, in my opinion, the European Union is more interested in terms of internet personalities in the personality itself. They don't care what you are or where you're from. They want to know about you as a person. Are you entertaining? Are you a fun person to listen to? Are you not a douchebag? Which, as it turns out, is really helpful towards me because I'm like, sure, I'll take as many European subscribers as I can get. And the interesting thing with me was we were playing Cards Against Humanity. I do Cards Against Humanity with subscribers on Sunday night, and only one person in that entire 10-person game was from the U.S., and that was me. I had two people from Canada. I had two Germans. I had a couple people from the Netherlands, and then I had a bunch of people from England. Nobody else in that
Wow.
entire game was from the U.S. And I'm like, I feel slightly internationally alienated now.
As you try with a really horrible accent. Yeah, wow.
That's really cool though. Like this is the power of the internet, is truly that we have created a world. We are hopefully creating a worldwide community.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, it's going to be a longer question. I have a really interesting, so I've kind of always had this running debate, and I've talked to a bunch of my guy friends who are gamers, and they're always on the fence back and forth about this. But I feel like as much with pro sports, like pro physical sports, with esports, I think the thing that's we're going to have to do to get more women in gaming is have a female league. Thoughts?
No.
No?
What you're going to have to do is have women who are good at the game get together and make their own teams and their own stables. Because the thing with esports is it's not like you can't make your own league just for women like you're suggesting, because technically, if we take into account the way we gender a person, esports is a level playing field. Your physical capabilities are almost non-relevant. It's entirely in your head.
I totally agree with that.
Even today, I can still get onto Counter-Strike. I hate the Counter-Strike community. No offense to the Counter-Strike community, but you guys need to clean up your stuff. And walk out with a 20-plus kill death ratio. Because I've constantly been training on different video games with my reflexes, with how I think about stuff, with how I play chess and checkers at the same time, so to speak. My Twitch reflex hasn't degraded, and I've actually gotten better at the game.
Yeah. I mean, on that level, I totally agree with you. I think that women are physically capable of doing all of the things that men are capable of doing for gaming. Like, there's no doubt about it. But I think that the cultural barrier is huge, just like unrealistically huge in a lot of ways. And I think we saw this actually in the early 2000s. There were a couple of companies that did fund all-female gaming groups. Like we had the Vixens. There were a couple others. I think Team Liquid has attempted it even more recently. And to me, it looks like it's just not enough. It's not going to be enough of a push. And part of the disadvantage that I think we see with girls is that we get into gaming later, for the most part. Like, it's not as encouraged of a hobby as kids. Like, I think even with your kids, it's actually surprising that Abby loves Minecraft as much as she does. But in comparison, like, Dylan's interest was, I think, much more cultivated, and it's just more expected for the boys to be into that sort of thing.
Well, it's more expected for the boys to be into that, and particularly in the U.S. culture, you hand a boy, a video game like when I was a kid, Doom or Wolfenstein, and that's perfectly acceptable. You don't hand that to a girl because you think that violent video games are not something girls should be playing.
Oh, I didn't even think about that part.
Well, from my perspective, I didn't want to play those games,
Right.
Like I really didn't, but I did play Call of Duty, and the one that starts with an H, not Halo, but it's 19 something. Anyway, another first person shooter.
I don't know, it was interesting, like even as a girl growing up, like I was super into Nintendo, and I wasn't like as much so I'd play a lot of like Zelda or Mario.
Donkey Kong.
Yeah. And it was always really weird, the games that other girls would play. Like it was very standout. Like almost all of my girlfriends loved Donkey Kong Country. And or Mario Kart.
You know what? I just realized I played video games, but I don't know of any of my friends I don't remember any of my girl friends playing games.
Very few.
That's weird.
And it's also role models in video games are a huge deficit towards men.
Right.
I actually had this discussion with someone I collaborated with, Warhammer 40K Theories, and he was like, "You're right." When I asked him, I want you to think of some video game personalities that you look at, like actual characters in video games you look up to, and he started naming video game characters, and I said, I'm going to point this out. He went, what? You just named 10 characters and not one of them was female.
Yeah.
And he had to sit there and think about it, and I went, now name a couple female ones, and he could only name 4.
I would be hard pressed to name more than 4.
And 4 he named were like Lara Croft and Samus Aran. But
yeah,
I was like, you see the problem. It's not just an encouragement where it's quote unquote a boys club. It's an encouragement to maintain it, because you only see male driven heroes in the games, and I begin to like I have to search for female protagonist games where it's a strong female protagonist who does not need motivations that are strictly considered a quote women only concern in order to be the strong female protagonist.
Yeah, I don't know. Princess Peach can jump pretty high in a dress.
And Samus is awesome and always has been.
Princess Peach
like
pretty high, but but for instance, the most recent Tomb Raider game, and I might take some flack for this one. Part of the motivation of the Tomb Raider game is to not get raped.
Oh, really?
There is a deleted scene from the U.S. version, in the not in the one that just came out, in the one that came out 2 years ago.
Why do they got to do
There's
that?
a deleted scene in the U.S. version, but it's in the European version and in the SE version, where you basically have a QuickTime event that says press to avoid being raped, and I just had to go, you've got to be kidding me, that's there. And the thing is, in the North American version, it's still in the code. You can actually go in and remove the barrier code and put the QuickTime event back in.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and this is something I talk about. My best friend is actually a game designer in the video game industry, and one of the things we talk about occasionally is like it's such a we're in such a loop of a catch-22 where like there aren't women making video games, and there's this perception that women aren't playing video games, which is wrong. These days, like women participate as much in gaming culture as men, just in different genres.
It turns out that when we take all of video games, especially when we take mobile games, women can play more video games than men now, according to research done by San Diego University.
Yeah, if you include mobile games and like the Facebook platform stuff, we like actually fairly substantially outweigh men. But that's interesting. I don't know. So these are things that I hope we will change eventually. So, well, Fiaura, this has been an awesome interview. It's been great to be able to chat about games for once, and well, kind of one of my fun things. And so if people want to follow you, we're going to have all your links in the show notes. And are you on Twitter? Do you want to do your Twitter handle real quick?
Sure. My Twitter handle is Fiaura_tanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Women's Tech Radio. Remember, you can email us, WTR@jupiterbroadcasting.com, or go to jupiterbroadcasting.com and do the show drop down and see the entire back catalog of Women's Tech Radio.
You can find us on Twitter @HeyWTR. You can also find our show on iTunes or YouTube or anywhere else that podcasts are. And if you've got a sec, we'd love to get a review on iTunes and hear what you think about the show. Thanks so much for listening.